Teachers are getting back into the swing of things this week. Before the start of school yesterday, many student athletes had already been busy on the practice fields.
Football and soccer are two big fall sports, and they involve a lot of contact, and injuries do tend to happen a lot, especially head injuries.
Yes, and joining us now to talk about student-athlete concussion awareness is Dr. Matthew Burry. He's a neurosurgeon at the Level 2 Trauma Center at Central Florida Regional Hospital. Thank you so much for joining us,
No,
Doctor.
thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
All right, so first off, concussions, what are the main symptoms? What are things that you need to look at if your kid gets hit in the head?
Well, I think this is a great public service that you're doing here. You know, there was an article about 2 years ago in a major British medical journal saying concussion, it confuses us all. So even for medical professionals,
Really?
it's difficult. I can imagine for parents, it's got to be a challenge. So I think the biggest thing that people worry about is what to do first. And so the overwhelming evidence is that if there's a witness loss of consciousness or a post-traumatic, if you see a seizure, obviously, or if there's a proven loss of consciousness, that's probably the time to have an emergency room evaluation, likely at a trauma center. Now, you're wondering, what are the symptoms if there hasn't been a loss of consciousness? How does a concussion present, is what you're asking. And some of them can be very subtle. Usually there's a nausea that's very short-lived, usually within a day, but a prolonged headache for up to a month sometimes. Inattentiveness, emotional lability. Kids will cry inappropriately or fuss, or which in a teenager we all probably a little difficult.
Maybe I have a concussion right now.
They're all concussed.
Right.
But inattentiveness, difficulty with schoolwork is something to watch, and all that should present within 48 hours of the event. This isn't, it's not something, a week later you're noticing something the first time. Mm-hmm. So you should see it early, and sleep disorders are also kind of common. Inability to sleep or difficulty going to sleep or not being able to sleep throughout the night. So if you see all that within 48 hours, then you probably have a concussion, and then the next step is I would see a professional.
And I think we've all had that experience where maybe our child hits their head or whatever, and you're like,
yes.
oh, don't go to sleep, or you stare at them while they're sleeping. Is that necessary? Is that a thing? Like if you have a head injury, don't go to sleep?
No,
Haven't we
all done that? Or is it just me?
I have a 15-month-old, and he's got 2 bruises right
and
here.
you have 3 monitors on him and stuff. No, if there hasn't been, overwhelmingly, if there hasn't been an initial loss of consciousness.
Okay.
Now, you could also, what if you don't know? And if there's any doubt, I would certainly get an evaluation. For example, if the kid comes in from playing and he has friends that are like, oh, he was knocked out. I mean, you don't know what happened. So,
right.
But generally, if you feel like something you're having to watch overnight, then you need to get an evaluation. You don't want to do it. It's not you don't want it. It's not amateur watching. But no, going to sleep is not a problem at all if there hasn't been initial loss of consciousness.
Okay.
How do you rehab from a concussion? Because we talk about, such a high number of concussions go undiagnosed, but say you are diagnosed with a concussion, how do you recover from that? What happens then?
Well, there's there's the return to play, or return to physical activity, and then there's going to be the return to learn or return to school, and those are going to be separate. The return to school is generally about 1 to 2 days later, generally when the kid can sustain about 45 minutes of concentration without symptoms occurring. So if you have the child read or something quietly for 20 minutes and the headache starts, or they stop being able to do the concentrated activity, then they're not ready. But generally by 2 days, maybe I don't usually do it till any longer than after 5 days, because even if they're having some trouble, getting behind in schoolwork becomes another stressor.
Right.
So we have forms and stuff that they can go to school, maybe have some take breaks at the nurse's office, have some catered activities, because being out 2 or 3 weeks, even if you get all better, now you have a 2 to 3 week back, then just another stressor. Now, return to play is another specialized thing, and I would just write this down, not 10 days minimum. I mean, most studies, just 10 days, absolutely no return to play, and that you could do some mild aerobic activity, but generally, very little screen time, very little lights, very little stimulating environments, maybe a book, mild activity for those 10 days. And then like when I work with some of the collegiate athletes in the area, I work with their trainers to then start these small challenges. And there's a protocol that's been published. So you do 10 minutes of exercise, and then each time trying to see how long can you go before symptoms occur. Okay, and so that's the return to play. And so once you can do it for an hour, then we get it back to initially, then starting to go to practice and everything like that. There are some medications we very rarely use, but for some of the headaches, we give 2 or 3 weeks of various medications. I wouldn't use ibuprofen because there's a rebound effect after about a week.
Yeah.
And then knowing that it's going to get better, and that the biggest thing is re-injury, and that can be the catastrophe. Right. Getting a second concussion while you're recovering. Some studies show a 9% mortality. I mean, so you go from something that's, oh, you're going to get all better, to you can have something fatal. So in that period of time where the metabolism of the brain is not adequate, you definitely don't want a second injury, or the second injury syndrome, as they call it.
So take it easy.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We will put all this information on clickorlando.com. A lot of great information for parents.
Does the camera make you look younger and thinner?
It definitely does
All
not.
right.
That's a big no.
All right.
You know, every
That's a
time we
big
go
no.
to the mall, it's like, wow, you're so skinny and young in person.
Thanks a lot.
Well, we can't help that.
All right, thank you so much. We've enjoyed it.